Good afternoon, everybody. Am I on? Am I on, Heath? Am I on? There we go. Okay. So those of you out in the lobby, come on in. We'll get started. Thanks to all of you for being here, and it is an odd view from here because there's a lot of space between each of you, and it is different, obviously, for this kind of an event that we've had before, and when we would pack the house. But thank you for being here. We will make sure you spread the word that we'll be taping this, and it'll be available later to view for anybody who's not here. Want to take a minute to introduce some special guests, and I'm not sure they're all here yet, if they're going to be here or not, but Clif and I just came from a luncheon with many of our state representatives and from our local area, and so that included David Evans. I don't see David at this moment, who is our local state representative. Carla Esslinger. Carla, you want to just kind of wave? There's Carla, who's state representative and a candidate for state senate. We'll say. There you go. We also have Ron Copeland, and Ron is a candidate, likely candidate here, or likely successor for the state representative from his area, and Benny Cook, and Benny's from our area as well. So appreciate them. We also have with us Megan Nickey, and Megan's up here. Megan is our the Congressman Jason Smith's liaison here in West Plains. So Megan, thanks for joining us. We also have West Plains Mayor Jack Paulman, who's always a friend. Thank you, Jack, for coming. We have our Missouri State University Board of Governors member and good friend Carol Sylvie. Carol's down here in front. And then we have Josh Reeves. Josh is over here. Josh is from Ozarks Medical Center, and I'll introduce Josh a little later for something else that he's going to help us with. We have three other special guests down front, but I'll save that for just a minute. I also want to recognize two of our students, and some of the folks who are usually in the audience are not here, and that's our students, except for Zeke. So Zeke Webb, where's Zeke? There's Zeke, our SGA president, and Savannah James. There's Savannah. So glad you guys could come. As you know, we didn't have a commencement back in May, and usually it's at commencement that we have two very special awards ceremonies for that, and that's our Granville Vaughn Founders Award, and then our honorary degree that we award every year. So we're going to do that in this setting, and appreciate the people we're going to recognize in just a minute for coming and being a part of this event. So the Granville Vaughn Founders Award is given every year, and is given in the spirit of those who established Missouri State University West Plains more than 55 years ago. This prestigious award is named in honor of the campus's founder, the late Missouri State Representative Granville Vaughn, and is given to those who have stayed active in the community and have made a significant impact upon the mission of Missouri State West Plains. It's my pleasure to present the 21st Annual Granville Vaughn Founders Award to a couple who has spent nearly 30 years supporting the university and are pillars in our community, Chuck and Sue Kimberlin. Chuck and Sue Kimberlin have for many years quietly and consistently been the best of supporters from Missouri State West Plains. They have shared their time, energy, wisdom, and resources with our faculty, staff, and students in ways on campus many on campus would not even know about. By sharing themselves, the Kimberlins have made a significant and meaningful difference in our lives and the life of the West Plains campus. So here's some ways. The Kimberlins' ties to MSU West Plains go back to its beginnings when Chuck's mother, Irene, supported efforts by Vaughn even to establish the local campus back in 1963. Chuck himself began his collegiate career at what was then known as the Residence Center at Southwest Missouri State College. Chuck and Sue met at the Springfield campus, and after completing their degrees, began careers serving Missouri residents through the Missouri Division of Vocational Rehabilitation and Missouri Division of Employment Security in St. Joseph and later in Kirksville. Eventually, Chuck's career led the family to West Plains, where he became the division's district supervisor. At the time of his retirement, he had served Missourians with disabilities for 35 years. Sue, who had begun work on a teaching degree at Northeast Missouri State, completed her certification locally and spent 24 years before retiring. During his tenure as district supervisor, Chuck helped establish what is now known as the Ozark Independent Living Center with Director Cindy Moore. He spent many years on the center's board of directors as center officials helped those in need, including many students here at MSU West Plains. In addition to their many good works in the community, Ozark Independent Living officials established several scholarships at Missouri State West Plains through the center, including one in Chuck and Sue's name. Living by the mantra, good things begin at home, the Kimberlins have shown their support for the university in many ways. They've given to numerous scholarships, programs, and endowments, and participated in various university-sponsored events. They've given each year to the annual fund since its establishment in 2008. They've supported the Friends of the Garnett Library and the Garnett Library's book fund. And they've made major contributions to our Ozarks Heritage Resource Center, which is still under development. Chuck also gifted more than 50 Civil War-era letters, once given to his mother, a well-known local genealogist with contacts across the country, gave those to the Garnett Library in her honor. The letters, which were found after Irene died, were written by Sergeant John L. Arnold, a young man from Trenton, New Jersey, who served in Company E of the 97th New York Regiment. They ranged from the earliest days of the war in 1860 until 1864, when he was discharged as a captain from the Union Army. If you've not checked those out online, they are digitalized, then you should do that, especially if you're a Civil War buff. The Kimberlins were among the first to support the Grizzly Athletics Department in 1993, and since that time they've contributed to and established scholarships for student athletes, including the Chuck and Sue Kimberlin Grizzly Endowed Scholarship, and participated in the annual trivia night for Grizzly Athletics and Adopt a Grizzly program. In addition to being longtime members of the Grizzly Booster Club, Chuck has served on its executive board of directors for many years. He served two different terms on the development board and was its president for 1 year and served on the trivia night committee for several years. It is a pleasure to honor Chuck and Sue this way. They have quietly and consistently and effectively and significantly changed our campus for the better and for our students. So it's at this time I'll ask Chuck and Sue to come forward. This is a little different on how we do this, but Chuck and Sue are going to come forward and they're going to grab their award since I can't technically give it to them. For our second community award, it's my honor to announce the recipient of the 2020 Honorary Associate's degree. This is the 10th year that an honorary degree has been bestowed by the university. It's designed to recognize extraordinary individuals who have given a substantial part of their lives to serving others and have distinguished themselves. It also is designed to establish a public association between Missouri State University West Plains and such exceptional men and women, thereby providing testimony to the values and quality of the two-year institution. An honorary degree given by a college or university is meant to acknowledge and honor the exceptional work or influence of the person receiving that degree. It's certainly no different with our honorary associate's degree this year, which is being given to Mark Collins. Over many years, Mark has shown a work ethic and an interest level well beyond the norm in the affairs of Howe County and in many respects, southern Missouri. Mark and his wife, Ruby, have been influential supporters of Missouri State West Plains and for our mission of serving the students of this area. Mark has been a loyal public servant and an established elected official of Howe County for 24 years. He served as Howe County Southern Commissioner for 11 years before being elected presiding commissioner, to which office he holds now. He also writes a column for the West Plains Daily Quill. I did not know this, Mark. For some reason, I missed that. Mark writes a weekly column for the West Plains Daily Quill that keeps county residents updated on county government issues and budget status. His experience in public service extends beyond the county commission. He spent 18 years as a member of the Howe Valley School Board and served on the University of Missouri Howe County Extension Board. He currently serves, again, on the County Commissioners Association of the Missouri Board, is the president of the South Central Missouri County Commissioners, and is one of 12 elected officials in charge of the Workforce Investment Board for the South Central Missouri region of Missouri. Mark and Ruby Collins have been active supporters of MSU West Plains for more than a decade, working on such events as the annual auction, 50th anniversary gala, Sweetheart Auction, and Grizzly Trivia Night. Mark has participated in a variety of community events as well, including the literary campaign for local school districts, area civic organizations, Pioneer Days, FFA and FFA alumni, and area advisory boards. He provides opportunities for students to attend state and national conferences and local activities for elementary school groups working with the elderly. Mark remains an active volunteer in the area through his membership in the Greater West Plains Area Chamber of Commerce, Optimist Club of West Plains, and Elks Lodge. He also serves as a coach for area youth baseball, basketball, and football teams. His influence as a volunteer has impacted countless businesses and educational groups, including Missouri State West Plains, the Greater Boys and Girls Club of West Plains, and West Plains Elementary School. In addition to his public service, Mark and Ruby co-own Ruby Doo's Vintage Event Center in West Plains. By awarding Mark this honorary degree, we are recognizing his many years of humble service and dedication to Missouri State West Plains and Howe County as a whole, making it a better place to live. Mark, it's my great pleasure to award you this honorary associate's degree. So it's at this time that I want to introduce President Clif Smart, and Clif will be providing State of the University address as for the whole system. So, Clif.
Thank you, Dennis, and welcome everyone to our annual State of the University address in West Plains. Dr. Lancaster and I will be doing a joint presentation this afternoon, and then we're each happy to take questions at the end on any topic. As I told the Board of Governors in August, these last 6 months have almost certainly been the most challenging period in my professional life, and I know many of you could say something similar. Dennis jumped into his position in the middle of the pandemic. In other words, he volunteered for this and has provided really steady leadership needed on this campus. He's been a great member of my team, and so I want to start this by saying thank you to Dr. Lancaster for some really good work these last several months. A lot of good things happened last year, both before and after the pandemic began, and I thought we could start the presentation with brand new, hot off the press, What's New at MSU video. It's about 6 minutes long, and so let's roll the tape.
When future generations look back at Missouri State in 2020, they'll see a community of people that united around a common goal. In the fall, we launched our largest fundraising campaign ever, complete with student performances, star appearances, and an amazing fireworks display. During this campaign, we've received some of the biggest gifts in university history, creating new scholarships, programs, and structures. And our students, as always, have been our brightest stars. When the COVID-19 pandemic swept the globe, our community came together like never before. Although most of our students, faculty, and staff were learning and working from home, we united to keep Missouri State University's mission alive. During this time, our students needed financial help, and they got it when we quickly distributed almost $7 million of CARES Act funding. After personal protective equipment became scarce, Jordan Valley Innovation Center teamed up with Cox Health to create thousands of face shields for healthcare workers. And when it came time to plan our safe return to campus, our team installed safety measures, redesigned campus spaces, and launched a semester unlike any other. Missouri State is committed to making our campus a more welcoming place for students of color.
We have to do better, and we are committed to doing better.
The Student African American Brotherhood relocated its headquarters to Springfield and Missouri State, where they will continue their mission to provide pathways to college degrees for Black and Latino men.
President Smart and the MSU team have been just incredibly awesome in doing everything they can to ensure a seamless transition team for our headquarters.
The university is also launching initiatives to expand the Multicultural Resource Center, strengthen diversity training for employees, improve access for underrepresented students, and much more. Access to higher education is a key priority. Missouri State's new scholarships for Boys and Girls Club members across Missouri and free dual credit courses for qualifying high school students are just two of the ways MSU is opening doors to students who want brighter futures. The Center for First Generation Student Success recognized us for being a model university for first generation college students. Students gained access to even more valuable academic programs, including 150 new certificates and a wide expansion of degree programs available completely online. That's not to mention the formal approval of the university's new Doctor of Defense and Strategic Studies, a postgraduate program for students who want to one day protect the nations of the world.
From top honors to Missouri State University.
Our ad team won first place in the peer-to-peer protective project competition. Phi Beta Lambda won a ton of awards in the State Leadership Convention, and Missouri State's Risk Management Society Challenge team advanced to the final round of their competition. Our students continue to get dedicated support from award-winning faculty, like Dr. Richard Gebkin and Dr. Gary Mintz. Missouri State moved onward upward by launching its biggest campaign in school history, $250 million.
I know we can do this. Bears always face a challenge with resolve, with guts, and we do it together.
Before a packed house at Hammons Hall, the Missouri State Foundation announced it was already more than halfway toward reaching its goal.
We are Bears!
Alumnus John Goodman is chairing the campaign, which has already made a positive difference for students at MSU. We're transforming our university thanks to the generous gifts to the Darr College of Agriculture and the Reynolds College of Arts and Letters, named in honor of Judith Enyart Reynolds. In all, the foundation raised more than $22 million in the last year. Our faculty and staff picked up almost $30 million in external research funding, too. All of that work centers on our public affairs mission. The Carnegie Foundation recognized Missouri State with the Community Engagement Classification, which reflects our commitment to helping our community. And Missouri State was recognized as one of the most veteran-friendly employers in the state by the Department of Defense. Bears Athletics had another stellar campaign, one that was on track to win the Missouri Valley Conference All-Sports Trophy before the pandemic. Men's soccer completed a historic undefeated season and hosted its first NCAA regional match.
History is made. They have never been to the second round of the NCAA. Congratulations, Missouri State University.
Coach Mox's first year at the helm of the Lady Bears was a huge success.
There's a free ball by Manning. Got it! Manning! It's a big shot as the horn sounds!
The team claimed a Valley title with a 26-4 record and finished the year ranked as the 19th best team in the country. That success resulted in Mox being named the nation's top rookie head coach. The Bears also brought acclaimed head football coach Bobby Petrino to Springfield. He's installing an exciting brand of football and bringing top recruits to the program. Despite the challenges, we showed what it means to be a Bear. That's what's new at MSU.
You saw a reference on that video to the almost $30 million in grant funding the university received last year. And so I have an announcement to make today on that topic, which will significantly impact this campus. As I was driving up here this morning, Senator Blunt called me to tell me that we have been awarded a $960,000 Delta Regional Authority grant through the Department of Labor to develop an advanced welding program on the West Plains campus. Yeah. With Dennis and Shirley and their teams, we've been working together on this project for the last 2 years. We've had great community support as well. As I told Megan at lunch, a big thank you to Congressman Smith for his endorsement letter that went with that application. But no one is better than our senior senator at bringing home money for Missouri for projects like this. And so I want to publicly thank Senator Blunt for the really good work he continues to do for all of us, but in particular, Missouri State University. So, I have 4 other topics, maybe less exciting than that one, to share with you this afternoon before I turn it over to Dennis. And I want to start with an update on COVID-19. And I would tell you that things have gone relatively well during the first 5 weeks of the semester in Springfield. And our plan to deliver a hybrid semester with seated classes, residential life, modified activities is working. So this slide shows you the data on positive cases during the first 5 weeks of school. And you can see students are getting this figured out, and we're moving in the right direction. If you look at our dashboard, we've had only 51 cases over the last 7 days. We continue to test 500 to 600 people a week, and that now includes random asymptomatic testing. We will begin testing 10 different wastewater sites after fall break to get additional data. I would tell you that most of these positive cases are students. 80% are living off campus. And of the students that have tested positive, almost all have had mild to moderate symptoms, which resolve after 3 to 4 days. None have had major long-term consequences of having the virus. Equally important is the fact that only 2 faculty members have tested positive in the last 5 weeks, and neither of those cases was connected to campus, thus demonstrating that our policies of requiring masks in classes, sanitation stations, reducing class sizes are working to protect our faculty, which is a more vulnerable population than our students, from this virus. The next slide shows our housing numbers for those in isolation. That has come down significantly as well. We have about 23 students in isolation or quarantine today, a very manageable number. And so given this data, As I said, I believe our path is working, and we will continue on it for the fall. As I told the group at lunch, we can't stop the university any more than we can stop business or government. We have to continue, and we have to figure out how we're going to manage through the pandemic, and I think our team on both campuses is doing just that. That decision is supported by federal, state, and local government, business, education, and health leaders, of whom we interact with literally every day. Second topic I want to share with you is our enrollment update. Fall enrollment data is now final. The red line is the system line. The blue line is the Springfield line. I'm sure Dennis will talk about the West Plains in more detail in his turn. You know, on the Springfield campus, we anticipated a reduction of as many as 1,500 students for the fall and budgeted accordingly. As a result of both a large graduating class and falling number of Missouri high school graduates. We also anticipated fewer international students. And then when the pandemic occurred, we knew that others, or we anticipated that others would stay home as a result of that. But instead of going down, we actually improved and increased. And so our overall enrollment for the system as a whole is up, as well as our enrollment on the Springfield campus. Part of the explanation for that jump is a record graduate enrollment, which is shown in this slide. We were 15 people short of surpassing the 4,000 student number, which we've been shooting for several years. We're getting awfully close. We also had a record number of first to second year retention rate of 79.2%. That's the best we've ever done, and doing that in a pandemic is meaningful. Maybe the most important thing that I'll show you today is this next slide, which shows the number of people that graduated with a credential from Missouri State University. We graduated more people this year than we ever have in our history. 5,695 students got a credential from the Springfield campus. These numbers, none of these enrollment numbers would be where they are without our plan to offer seated and blended classes and continue on, as I talked about earlier. Here's how we're delivering our classes this spring. You know, if I'd have shown you this pie chart from fall a year ago, 79% of our classes would have been fully seated. And so you see that we have significantly modified how we are delivering classes. And this was a successful strategy, as 2/3 of our classes still have some seated component on the Springfield campus, and that is what students want. You know, we've seen other universities which early on moved everything completely online lose up to 1/3 of their enrollment year over year, and millions of dollars of revenue as a result. We're planning for the spring semester now, and our focus is on maximum flexibility. So I expect our largest section of classes in the spring will be the blended model, so that we have that flexibility to move from seated to online and back as the virus dictates. And only those classes that can't be effectively offered this way will be fully seated. And again, a part of this transition is continuing to train faculty on how to better deliver classes in this new environment. A third topic, I wanted to talk about some academic achievements over the last year in Springfield, and nothing is more important than accreditation. And so this slide talks about that. We successfully universities get accredited fully every 10 years, but 4 years in, the accrediting body takes a look to see how you're doing, and so we had our 4-year assurance review by the Higher Learning Commission last year, and I would tell you I saw the most positive statements I've ever seen in such a document, particularly as it pertains to the public affairs mission and how the university has fully embraced that. These next two slides, and we'll go to slide 13 here, talk about or highlight some of the achievements at our college level. I'll talk about a couple of those. On this slide, you see that we have developed a new collaborative program with the University of Arkansas for a 3+1 poultry science degree. And so students can take their first 3 years at the Dar College of Agriculture. And if they want to specialize in poultry science, they go down to Fayetteville and will get a joint program degree there. Again, that's an efficiency such that we're not having to hire poultry science specialists to deliver that degree, but rather partnering with another university that already has that expertise and keeping those students in Missouri. Our information technology degree was completely restructured into 3 new tracks, and we used a group of employer advisory board members to do that work so that the graduates of those programs are trained and ready to enter the workforce. Our College of Education increased programs and experience and had enrollment growth year over year, and has begun specific master's programs out in high schools across the state. We continue to be the largest teacher ed supplier, with 1 out of every 8 teachers in Missouri having a degree from Missouri State. The next slide, I'd highlight a couple of things. We added a new terminal degree program, a Master in Fine Arts and Dramatic Writing, that enrolled 16 students in its first year. And then our Master of Social Work, we completely retooled that, moved it completely online, and we moved from 60 students a year ago to 120 students this fall, again, by delivering classes in the way that working adults need and want to take them. I'm very proud of the work that our social work department did to bring that off. In the next slide, you'll see we continue to expand our professional doctorate options. Our first non-healthcare doctorate was granted to us by HLC this year. That's the Doctorate of Defense and Strategic Studies. That's in Washington, D.C., and then you saw talked about on the video. Our next program up is to move our Master of Occupational Therapy program into a doctoral program as well, and then others will follow behind it. And then finally, I want to talk about the action plan for this year. We just completed our retreat, and the board signed off on this. In this very different year, our primary focuses on Springfield campus will be, first, managing the crisis. Second, expanding our diversity work as we move ahead in becoming a more welcoming and inclusive campus. And third, planning for the future. The 2021 Springfield Action Plan was recently published in Clif Notes, I think a week ago Tuesday, and I hope you have or will review that document. There is also a section on the West Plains campus and what they're working on this year that this team prepared and the board signed off on as well. I want to focus, though, on the planning section of the document, which includes us completing a strategic enrollment management plan. We had begun that work and we paused it when the pandemic struck, as well as drafting a new long-range plan and a new visioning guide for the Springfield and Mountain Grove campuses. West Plains personnel will participate in the Springfield planning processes, so they are prepared to follow with their own strategic plans a year from now. Slide 16 highlights how you can join us on Monday for a future visioning webinar. What does the future of higher education look like after a pandemic? 1 o'clock on Monday. We would love to have any of you that are interested join us for that. And a part of that planning, as shown on this next slide, will include exploring new or modified academic offerings. That work is underway now. The pandemic has changed how many businesses operate and what the future workforce is going to need, and so we need to take a fresh look at our academic offerings, see which need to be rebranded, which need to be revised, which need to be phased out, and which ones need to be added. And this work this year will then serve as a major piece of our next long-range plan. So, that concludes my part of the State of the University address. And before I answer questions, I want to turn it over to Dr. Lancaster to give an update on this campus. Dennis?
Thank you, Clif. So I want to give a COVID update as well, and we have been blessed, and we've not had it that bad, I suppose, and we're all knocking on wood as we walk around these days. But we have had great guidance from our friends on the Springfield campus in terms of policies and processes and messaging. And we've had lots of help from our health department and others, but our team here, it was a long summer, lots of long Zoom meetings that we're all very tired of, but we've done fairly well. And so you can see here since August 1st, we've had a total of 13 cases, 10 of those being students, 3 of those being faculty and staff. Currently, we have 2 known positive cases, and those are one's a staff member, and all of those the contractions there have always has been from off campus, not on campus. So again, we're doing fairly well with all of that. Our coordination with health departments, and hats off to Scott Schneider and Brenda Polliard. One of the first things I guess I did, and assuming this position, was to name Brenda as the COVID czar. I'm not sure she appreciated that necessarily, but she's been able to work through policies and processes and making coordinations of things for me that I didn't have time to do always. And so I appreciate both of those individuals, as well as our COVID response team that meets every week as the executive team meets on the Springfield campus every week to talk about how things are going. Our housing plan, and I would encourage you to look on our website. If you go to the home page, look at the top left, and there's a little click up there, COVID-19, and you can see all the information of confirmed cases on every day when there might be one. The housing plan is there, and the housing, that's a key concern of ours. There's Douglas over there, and it is where we fear or anxious about where an outbreak might occur. And so Douglas and crew have done a great job, and appreciate the work there. We have room for resident students to be quarantined and isolated, have ways of getting them food because they might want to eat during 14 days. And so that's it has worked. But luckily we don't have anybody today, right? Doug, we have anybody over there? Oh, we don't know. Okay. On the academic side, and I have a few of my faculty friends out there I can see. I cannot say I can't say thank you enough, and how awed I am by all the work that's been done in the spring, over the summer, into the fall, and even as we're looking at spring here, a year after a year of all of this, of making changes to how their courses have been delivered. In some classes, they are delivering their course 3 different ways, depending on the situation, whether that would be seated, that would be online, or even via Zoom. So with this slide shows how our modality has changed in terms of delivering courses. And from blended, while we had several blended classes, the blended number has almost doubled there. Our online has increased some, and then you can see this number of seated classes that have gone down. And that's, again, hats off to all our faculty, making sure, as we've said from day one, that our priority this year is the safety of our faculty, staff, and students on campus. And this is one way, very important way, that we've been able to do that. And so I appreciate, again, our faculty greatly for all of that. Recently we had our survey. We sent out a survey, our COVID response team wanted to know what you thought about how things have gone so far, about messaging, what we're putting out there. Is it understandable? Is it clear? And I'm not going to go into great detail. These are 4 of the questions, but these are the more general questions, and the more specific ones I did not put up here. But for overall, everyone strongly agreed that things were going well. And so we're going to take that little kind of a measure every once in a while with campus. We will put out all the details to the faculty staff survey here at another day coming soon. You can see all the details of that. But again, if you have questions, go to that COVID response, that COVID information webpage that we have. Enrollment. So a part of this mix of things as we've talked through the summer into the fall is enrollment. And so here my hats off are to our staff members in particular. So we shuttered in March with Ask Week coming the next week, I think, if I recall correctly, Ask Week being our advising week. And so from that point on, things were very, very different. So how do we connect with our students, where most of our students are commuter students? How do we connect with them about, how are you doing this semester? What are you going to do this semester? But then also, you need to sign up for summer, or then in the fall, you stay on your path to your degree. Here are the courses, have you had this course, all those kind of things that to go through with that. And then if you were a new student, we would usually bring new students in to in-person orientation. We decided at some point we're not going to do that. And so we did it all virtually. And so I can't say enough to our access team, Cindy Bridges and Bruce, where Bruce is, Covet, and crew, and then everybody in registration, in financial aid, across the board, and then a lot of our faculty advisors who took on students that they've never talked to before and trying to call them and do this by Zoom. But it worked. And while we were scared to death middle of the summer that we were going to be way, way down, things are better than expected. So as of last Monday at 5 p.m., Lori tells me that we have 1,922 students. That's only, 41, if I could do my math, 41 down from last year. Now, a good number of those students are dual credit students, so the high schools, and so you can see a little bit of effect of COVID even with that. Many students wanting to go ahead and take some college courses while they're in high school. And we'll talk another day about the consequences of some of that, but you can see our credit hours are down, and they've been going down for some time. We've got to change that. We've got to turn that around. So we're going to be looking at that this year. Retention rate, our retention rate, and these are preliminary numbers here, but are down slightly. That's sort of discouraging. On the other hand, in the middle of a pandemic, with many of our students having great difficulty with connectivity in our area and how do they finish these courses, and am I coming back? I think we wore many of them out, maybe from the spring and summer. Not sure. We might do some focus groups on that, but not terribly discouraging. But we're down there, and so retention's a big deal for us. Our 3-year completion and transfer rate, however, is up. So this is our graduation rate, and that's good news. That's good news. So many of our students moving through onto what they want to do. Our course completion rates are up. In other words, the number of students overall who completed their course, and that's with an A, B, C, or a pass. D's and F's are not counted into that. So that number being important to us as well. Degrees and certificates, as Clif noted, a record number there. While ours isn't a record number, we might actually be close to that. 304, yeah. Let's add those together. I can add. So if you add 281 degrees with 23 certificates, and that's the most certificates we've ever had before, and those of you in the tech area realize that we're making some progress there with certificates. Add that together, then we do have a record number of credentials that were awarded last year. So, yay team. Budget update. Quickly, just want to go through this. I could be here probably forever because Scott's my real guru here, but we've got some things we've got to look at over the course of the year, and we think some of this may pan out, but it's just some iffy kind of things as we go along. But this is the current fiscal year. These are our revenue sources, and so if you see anything in parentheses, that means that's in the negative area. We didn't get as much money. So in FY21, our current budget year, then we had a withhold by the state right up front from the governors. It wasn't appropriate. We weren't given those appropriations. So the governor said, given what it looks like here in the pandemic, we're going to withhold this amount of money from the higher ed. So that's a big hole to start with for us. And so how do we make that up? Well, enrollment, we're not going to do it on enrollment by having additional money from enrollment. Our tuition increase of $4 gave us a little bit more money for that. And then there are two funds there you can see. And there are additional funds that we're waiting on, but those are from the CARES Act. For this is either federal monies that have flowed directly to us, some monies that have flowed into the state, and some that have flowed into the county. Mark Collins, our honorary degree recipient, being in charge of how those things were going to be applied for and distributed. And so after all of that, we're still short in terms of revenue, $310,000. If you're looking at then expenses, so we have additional expenses through all of this. And some of those expenses were related to COVID, and some of the monies coming into us are to offset that with that. And so there's some other things you can see, just the cost of doing business. And again, I'm not going to go through all those sort of things. But our ongoing expenses here are $185,000 in the wrong direction. Anyway, if you put all that together, our additional revenue resources and then our required ongoing expenditures, then that's $495,000. We froze several positions. So as you know, we have a lot of open positions. Hello? We have a lot of open positions that we decided that we were not going to fill until we could, and so that totaled to be $355,000. And while that is that's not going to work, is it? While that is a hardship in many of our offices, as you know, still it's helping us make the budget, and so that gets us down to about $140,000 short. How are we going to fill that? Well, we're going to talk about that in our executive budget meeting soon. There may be some monies that are still coming from the federal government through the CARES Act that might help toward that, but we're also looking at adding additional credit hours through other means in the spring. Can we, through our correctional programs, talk about that in a few minutes, are there some other things we can do to beef up our credit hour production? So that's a number that we're going to shoot for, and we'll see how it goes. Just wanted to let you know. Our action plan is, as President Smart mentioned, that we too have 6 items in our action plan. So I want to go through these quickly. One is just to keep the campus going. COVID and budget in particular, and so how do we address those things? Again, we have a COVID response team looking at things constantly. On the academic side, we have switched already to having 2 8-week block sessions in the spring. That will be very different. Again, our faculty have been great about making this change. And there's other changes that go with that, and students will have to be aware of that, so we'll have to do a lot of messaging in that direction. But we're thinking here that should COVID be intense enough that we would have to close early or later in the spring, that if we had these 2 8-week sessions, the 8 weeks, students would be taking fewer courses in that 8 weeks. So it would take 2 or 3 classes in the first 8 weeks, 2 or 3 classes in the second 8 weeks. And then if we'd have to close, then that's a lot easier to handle than 5 or 6 or 7 courses that they had this spring. So that's one thing we're thinking about. The other is a little experimental here, is that a lot of the literature shows that if you do this, you have greater retention, especially in the 2-year school. Greater retention in your classes and greater success. So we're going to see how that goes. Often there are opportunities and crises, so we're going to see if this is an opportunity or not. Then we're also looking at a zero-based budgeting model for the coming year, and so we are considering it. And we'll be talking about that soon in our executive budget committee. But this would be a huge change for us, any of you that are responsible in providing information toward a budget. And while it would be a pretty big undertaking, it could be very important to us. So our goals there are saving money, identifying money that could be moved someplace else. The second is being very transparent with the campus. I want everybody to know where the money's coming from, where it's going, and how we're using that. And so it might be interesting as we go along. And it's probably just going to be not a one-year thing. It's probably going to be a multiple year kind of effort. Second one's recruit and retain students. We're going to be working on our strategic enrollment plan. So we're a year behind the Springfield campus for that, as well as we will be for the long-range plan. And so Angie, Dr. Toddy and Dr. Orff and team are responsible for that, and that will be important for us. The other is just realizing that, things aren't going to be the same. So how do we do this? How do we recruit? How do we connect with students and parents and school counselors in this different kind of setting? What are they going to be looking for? Are they going to be looking for the kind of delivery modalities that we have, the kind of programs that we have? So it is going to be different, and we're going to have to talk about all of that. Our future why, though, it is why are we here? Why do we exist? Why do students want us here? Why does the community want us here? So we're going to be asking some big questions that way. Academic programs, and so we're looking at some more focused programs. The good news about welding that came today certainly is very welcome news. This is one of those that we'll be looking at. Short-term kind of programming that students might be here all day, 4 days a week, but they're going to get a credential that they can use to go to the job, and then we can do stackable programs on top of that. More about that later, but that's one out of the bag here. And I've got to give my hats off to Sheila Barton, who really put that whole maybe no, that was Kathy. That whole grant program together, and certainly help from our Springfield friends and sponsored research and others, but. Sheila was the one who was worrying over it over the weekend and on the middle of the night and all those kind of things. So thank you, Sheila. Special interest in student needs groupings as far as programs, looking at niche kind of programs instead of doing a wide swath, and let's focus in on some different things. Obviously, our multiple delivery and alternate kind of delivery things, and then again, short-term programming, workforce development continuing to be the focus of a lot of what we'll be doing. We too have initiative in creating a more diverse, more equitable, and more inclusive campus. And this is a key point for me. This is important. And more about this another day. But we're going to start the conversation directly with students. We've already done that. And today, even this afternoon, we have our first Tough Talks. So last week, as you know, we had graffiti sprayed on our concrete blocks. And so while that may be the defacing of university policy, it is also an indication that there are issues. So we're not going to shy away from the issues. This is a university. We talk about such things. This is an educational environment in which if we can't do this here, then the world's at an end. We got to be able to do this. And we got to be able to teach ourselves as well as our students of how do you do this in very civil ways. And we're going to champion this idea of being a much more diverse place. Not that we're going to change the world. Not we're going to change West Plains, but we can change our campus and how we do things. So I'm excited about this, and so I appreciate Dr. Toddy is taking the reins to this one. And this is a college campus and community collaborative, and Carol Sylvie sits on that, as well as Crockett and Tanya Oakes, and then Anna Australia from our faculty, also part of that initiative. And then finally, we want to strengthen our bond with our colleagues in Springfield. While I have been here 28 years, And I've known the connections that we've had in Springfield. I have not known how deep those go. I have not known how important those connections are. While it takes time, and it takes distance, and sometimes you have to travel up there and all those kind of things, and today in Zoom, I guess you don't have to do that, but it's worth it, guys. The benefits to us being a part of the system, and I would also argue, as Clif knows too, is that the benefits to the system for having this West Plains campus are huge. It's a very interesting system. And because of that, I think the opportunities are huge for both campuses and for the state of Missouri. So we look forward to doing more of that this year. And so finally is this Grizzly Strong campaign, and we're going to talk about this just a little bit more. And this is an internal campaign for us. It's also external as well. But we want to rebuild our athletics sport base, and so what that means, we need more fans, we need more butts in the seat, how they say. That's going to be interesting this year. We're not exactly sure how that's going to work, but Paula Whitteman is our new athletic director, and Jared Fay is our new basketball coach. And so we're going to work through this. Our community, our booster club, are part of this conversation. But for many reasons, we've got to increase that support base. So how do you do that? How are you proud of your team? How are you proud of your campus? How are you, how does that, what can we do to make that? So it's Grizzly Strong. So it's not just athletics stuff. It's what we're going to do in other places too. One of those areas is restructuring development in our university communications office. So if you've not heard the rumor yet, which is no longer a rumor, Cheryl Caldwell is hanging it up after 31 years. At the end of this fiscal year, so whether that be May 31st or June 30th, Cheryl's going to go play with Hannah and her little brother or sister. I'm sure she's going to do much more than that. But so that is going to be a big hole, first of all, to fill. The other part, though, is that it does give us an opportunity maybe to do something different. So we've frozen that Director of Development position. So now we're looking at putting those two together in an Office of External Relations. Not sure that's what we're going to call it, but we think we can have some greater traction in that. Maybe we can do a lot more cross discovery. We hope to be able, with the monies saved by doing that from one of those positions, then to hire a marketing specialist, and that we've not had to a great extent. So that's one of those things that we're going to be looking at. We're also going to be just looking forward and outward to our partners in the community, and we have many. And we could not be doing a lot of what we're doing without them. So at this moment in time, I want to turn it over to one of our partners. So Josh Reeves. Josh is Executive Director of Operations, something like that. Josh, come on up. Josh is from Ozarks Medical Center, and so we've partnered with OMC in many ways. One of those big ways is being able to expand our nursing program, and that's to our benefit, to our students' benefit, but also to Ozarks Medical Center and our physicians in the area. So we appreciate OMC's support of that to the tune of $300,000 over 3 years, and so it is a great it is a great big deal to me. So thank you, Josh. And the other is through the Mask Up campaign. So I'm going to let Josh talk here a little bit. Come on up, Josh.
That's good service. So right before I came on, Melody told me, don't forget to talk about the Mask Up Ozark campaign. So the Mask Up Ozark campaign is an initiative with several community institutions. Ozarks Medical Center, City of West Plains, Howe County Health Department, the university, Burton Creek Rural Health Clinic, Southern Missouri Community Health Center, and the West Plains Schools. It's encouraging appropriate behavior in the time of COVID. There's been a lot of debate about the role of the hospital, the role of the university, and the role of government institutions in mandating what people do. I think this is the appropriate approach for our community, is that we just allow folks the information and the knowledge to know what they need to do to keep the community safe. So thank you very much, University, for participating in that program. So I just want to say thank you, President Smart, and thank you, Dennis, for allowing us to come here and speak a little bit about the unique partnership between Missouri State University West Plains and Ozarks Medical Center. Through these programs, our missions are interwoven. They don't necessarily overlap. We want to help. The University and Ozarks Medical Center want to help. We want to help our patients. We want to help our students. We want the best for our communities. And we've always strived to make positive impacts on economic development. That's one of the key issues that we've tried to partner with the university through the last several years. But several months ago, and I believe it was the start of spring break, the coronavirus reached the Midwest and the Mid-South, and I know our day-to-day operations changed overnight. I believe they did with the university too. I don't think anyone was not affected by it. We set up an incident command system. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of that. I think the university will sometimes use that in cases of emergency. But within an institution, everyone's roles change overnight. They start meeting 2-3 times a day. We met twice a day at the hospital, I believe for a solid 60 days, just to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. A part of my role in that, and not a role that I was accustomed to, was trying to make sure that we had the proper resources to get through this pandemic. And I believe it was within the first week, Dennis, Dennis Lancaster was one of the first people to reach out to Ozarks Medical Center and ask, do you need help? What do you need? What can the university do for you? And then as we kind of progressed, I met Jim Hart over at GoCat, and of course Amy with the nursing program was of great help. And it was really just everything the university had available, they made available to OMC. It was beds to ventilators to face shields that were manufactured over at GoCat. They never batted an eye when we needed help. And I'll give you a quick story. I think it was about a month before the pandemic hit, there was a surplus auction at the university, surplus property auction. And in that property auction, there were some old ventilators and medical supplies. And somehow or another, the staff remembered who had bought the supplies at the auction, tracked him down to make sure that it was okay if they donated to the hospital. So in the middle of the night, I had respiratory therapists going to a garden shed in Lanton to pull out medical supplies and ventilators for the hospital. I don't know what we would have done without the university's help. I can say now that we have the efficient ventilators to take care of our staff. We have the PPE for our staff and ventilators. We have beds in our viral ICU. And when we look back on this journey that we call the coronavirus pandemic, we're pleased to work with and live in a community where we all come together. You know, for the last several weeks, our community and our hospital have been experiencing a surge that we really expected in March and April. And I know that without the help of the university and our community partners, we would not be as prepared as we are today. So thank you very much on behalf of Ozarks Medical Center for helping us and helping our communities.
Sorry. Is he that clean at home, Krista? Is he? Josh, thank you very, very much. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that maybe are not about numbers, but about who we are as a campus and how we work as a team. As you all know, I can wax poetic or philosophic from time to time. So that's a bit where this came from. So this logo, and Ron, thank you for doing all these logos. And just tell Ron, do something, and it just comes out. It's amazing. So let me talk a little personal here. I don't know if you can pick me out or not. Most people can, but that is me there. So this is my Little League team when in our 11 and 12th. Yeah, we were 11 in the 11 and 12 age Little League here in West Plains. And this is the Auctioneers, and we were undefeated. We were the best. We were absolutely wonderful in my mind. But we were undefeated somehow with all of that. And so we had a coach, and some of you who've been around will remember Homer Howard, who is obviously the taller one in this group. And I always thought his name was Homer because he hit home runs. Anyway, so Homer was an interesting sort. Was not probably really all that athletic as I think about it now, but he was there for his son, who was right next to me between him and his dad. So we were, I think we were 13-0 that season. And then we moved to the age 13, 14, and 15. And when we did that, many of us continued on the same team because, one, we liked each other, and Homer said, yeah, I want him, and all that kind of thing. And so we went to that next level, and it suddenly dawned on me as I was stepping foot onto that field that this was not Little League anymore. This was a big place. And so that year, I think we were 0-13. Because most of us were pretty young, and we may have had a few older ones that had joined us. But it was very different. So you had to run a lot further to the base, between the bases. The balls came at you from a pitcher who was seemingly, twice your age, and were throwing about twice as fast as they did the year before. And they would hit you once in a while. And if you played third base like I did, then if you ever played baseball or softball, then third base is that hot corner, and they come screaming, and they bounce, and they hurt. Or they don't bounce and they hurt. So it was very, very different. And all of us just sort of crumbled in the differences. So it wasn't as much fun. We weren't the best anymore. And Homer, in his wisdom, which was very, Carol knows, was very sort of backwoods, sort of, kind of thing. But in his wisdom, and that's not being sarcastic, said, guys, you just have to be better each day, every day. So we may not have been the best, and we weren't going to be the best anytime soon. But it was more about what were you doing today to be better? And what were you going to do tomorrow to be better than the day before? During that time, and I was a big baseball fan at the time, okay, my hero, one of my heroes was this guy, was Lou Brock. And Lou just passed away last week, week before. And so Lou Brock was my heroes, and partly just because, he was consistent. But the big deal was he stole bases. And I love that whole idea. You didn't have to hit it out of the park or even hit it out of the infield. You could just steal a base if you got on base. And he made things happen for his team. He wasn't flashy. He was consistent. He was classy. He was just a good guy and a good baseball player. He held at one point, then he had most steals of any one season. And until Ricky Henderson, I think, bypassed him a few years ago, he held that record for a long time. So one of the things that Lou Brock said, and I heard him speak twice, one when he was a ball player, and one after he was retired, and that's been a few years ago. But one of his, where did that go? There, no, I lost it. I did lose it. Sorry, Trish. It was my fault. one of the things he said was basically that, was you have to play every day. And when you play every day, you don't think about records. You don't think about being the absolute best. You have to think about being better that day than you were the day before. So better each day, every day. So right now, I would think for many of us, no matter whether you work for the university or not, but it's like, when is this all going to be over? The bases are a little further away. They hit a little harder. It's a little more dangerous in my corner. And on campus, I know many of you are concerned about working. I realize that. Faculty members being concerned about standing in front of the class, being able to deliver and do what they want to do, but also, is doing this going to make me ill? Students, hats off to our students who've decided to come to class, come to college. It is different. It is different. And while we, can we tackle this and make it go away? We cannot. Okay, we just cannot. But how we approach it, and how we approach our jobs, and how we do this thing here in West Plains, can we be better each day, every day? It makes it doable. Okay, because it's making you're the one challenging yourself. It's not, I have to be better than Zeke, or I have to be better than CJ. It is, I have to be better than Dennis in what Dennis does today. For whatever Dennis does, I have to do better today. And I'm the only one who can answer that. It's tough, guys. And Clif and I look at a lot of stuff as we read, and what they're telling us now is this is going to be with us through 22. As a university, we're going to have to be dealing with this through 2022. And this is just toward the end of 2020. So can we be better each day and every day? How are we going to do that? And why do we do it? So this is the why. And Jared knows that this idea of why is important to me. Why do we do what we do? And so we have two alums here. And one is DeAndre Vilmar. You may remember DeAndre. And then the other two, I should say, are Taylor and Anna Sutherland. So Anna Cantrell, if you remember that name, and then Taylor. They got married. I guess that was a better day each day. All three of those are alums, and they're telling us what difference we made for them. That's why we do what we do. And so each day that I work, again, whatever it is I'm doing, sometimes you wonder, each day I've got to be better. And why do I have to be better? It's not for the paycheck, as you all know. It's nice to have the paycheck. Thank you, Clif. It's nice to have the benefits. Thank you, Carol. But this is why I work. Why do we do what we do? And can we be better at what we do? And how do we do that in such times that it's just kind of tough? The thing about Lou Brock that he never really talked about was the prejudice that he experienced while he was doing what he was doing. Now think a minute what he went through. Here it is, he's a world-class athlete. And we would all cheer for what he would do, stealing bases and hitting and grabbing that ball and keeping a ball from going out of the infield. But yet, when he got home or got back into the clubhouse, then there was this thing that circled around him that he couldn't control. But he still said, I need to be better each day, every day. And he was. He did that. So this idea of Grizzly Strong is another thing that we've been talking about. So we've had this committee, and Jared Cates from the Staff Senate and Brenda Smith, our Faculty Senate Chair, have been a part of this committee talking about Grizzly Strong. I want us to be Grizzly Strong. I think we are, but I want us to continue to be Grizzly Strong. And so this also goes out into our community. So Chuck and Sue, and we're talking about Grizzly Booster Club and other things, it's Grizzly strong. We want our community to feel strong because the university is strong. University is important, and we don't want it to be taken for granted. Not that I'm saying it is, but we don't want it to be. And so we need to be out there. We need to be proud of what we do. We need to do it well each day, every day, and we're going to do that. We're going to partner with folks like OMC and with South Central Career Center and R7 and whoever would like to come to the table. We want to partner because that makes us all stronger. And yeah, it takes a lot of work, but we're going to do it each day, every day, and we're going to be better for all of that. So at this moment in time, and I need to skip something because Melinda didn't. Melinda couldn't make it, but we're going to celebrate Melinda because each day, every day, she goes into a math class, as do others. But in this case, Melinda was named received the governor's award for teaching excellence, I should say, and for teaching math. Now, I am not a math person, as many of you know. I like words and ideas and stuff like that. And for me to teach, I would just be knocking my head against the wall every day, each day. But she isn't. And so we wanted to celebrate that. We will another time when she can make it. So at this moment in time, Clif and I are going to take, if you have any questions, we will attempt to give you an answer if you've got something you'd like to talk about. And I think Dr. Toddy is ready to give you a mic. So here's the deal, guys. We want to hear you. And before we can hear you, we need to wipe down the mic. Trisha's here as well. So this is a little cumbersome, but we do want to see if you have any questions for either President Smart or myself. So if you have one, just raise your hand. And if not,
my name is Nick Herring with the West Plains Daily Quill. What would you attribute the drop in credit hours from 2015 to current? I've noticed that the number of student enrollment remained fairly steady, but credit hours dropped, by I think 2,000 hours.
Sure. Very good question. One, we do not have as many graduates coming out of the high schools, so we've seen a population decrease in that particular age group, and so that moves up and down from time to time. But over the last few years, we've seen a pretty steady decline. Our understanding is that will go up a little bit, and then it will decline again as the population demographics will change. Another part of that, though, and this is perhaps Dennis just talking and thinking too much, but while the enrollment numbers you see have maintained or even gone up for us, there's a large number of dual credit students that are there. So the dual credit students or dual enrollment are high school students who are not yet degree seeking for that. So they're taking credits at their high schools in order to get a jump on college, which is a wonderful idea. However, we do see a larger number of those students that after earning, from 12 to 36, Michael, something there, credit hours, will not come to the two-year college, will not come to us, but they'll go on to the four-year school. So while they are enrolled with us, they are not taking as many credit hours. So they're only taking 3 credit hours or maybe 6 credit hours a semester at the most, not the full load. And so then when they have that, then they'll go on to another institution. So that's been a big change. It seems like over the last, 20 years, the number of dual credit students taking a large number of dual credit courses, has increased dramatically. So that's, it's kind of a, it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't kind of deal, to be honest. We want those students, we want to be able to offer our courses and provide that level of education for them. yet it's caused us a little difficulty in terms of an enrollment. I don't know if that answers your question or not. If we're continuing to look at that, but if you would look at the number of credit hours that are attributed to dual credit students, it's really not that much because there's fewer, but they're not coming here to get to take a full load when they get here after high school. So, Clif, did you have anything to add to that? No. Okay. Good question. Any other questions? Okay. So we're going to end this. You have to speak up. So here's what we're doing this year. This is what we're focusing on. And I have 2 models who are going to come forward and display the latest fashion at Missouri State West Plains. Now these range from, I'm sure, the extra small that Brenda is wearing to the not so extra small that Jared is wearing. We have t-shirts for everybody, and thank you as a courtesy from Ozarks Medical Center. So we have t-shirts for everybody in this room. We have t-shirts for all our faculty and staff who are not here, and we have t-shirts for every student on campus. Zeke, Savannah. And we're going to get those out. So you can see the Mask Up campaign on the back. We've got the Better Each Day, Every Day on the sleeve. And then in front, we've got the Grizzly Strong. So we're going to saturate South Central Missouri. We're going to saturate South Central Missouri with blue T-shirts. And, you know, this is, for some of us, this is what we wear, is just campus clothes, period. Anyway, Josh, please give Tom and others at OMC, Melody, thank you very, very much for all of that. So with that, you can get your T-shirt as you're going out. And so we're doing this very safely. So, you know, watch your social distancing. But they are arranged in size by table. Is that correct, guys? Okay. And again, this is an initiative of our Grizzly Strong team. And I thank Brenda and Jared for taking this on. Thank you all for coming today, and appreciate it.